Welcome back to Prof E Plays. So, in this episode, we're going to pick up again with Cepheus, and we are following our crew of Jeannie and Lino and Vince, right, who are trying to prevent an assassination that is supposed to happen this very day in a matter of hours. In the previous episode, we had originally planned to start with talking about the people who are waiting at City Hall, the location where the assassination is supposed to happen, and find out what preparations they were doing, how things were going. That got not interrupted, replaced by a different scene in which the crew that was going to be following the likely victim uh, were were completely unsuccessful. Just somehow, somehow they missed they missed it. They missed the likely victim, who's the leader of the Servants of Des. It's a charity that does work here on the planet of Lanor. They missed them leaving the headquarters, where they're going to have to hop into a vehicle and then travel from the suburbs of the city all the way downtown where City Hall is. Eventually, our crew did clue onto the fact that they must have missed them, so they need to head towards City Hall. So they're going to be getting to City Hall behind the victim. Fortunately, right, our plan included having people at City Hall in the morning so that at least it's not totally unwatched. So that's good, at the very least. There will be somebody right on the ground there. Specifically, according to our plan, at City Hall, we should have Leono and also one of the peacekeepers that we were lent for this particular mission. Right, so our plan right now is that we are going to be picking up at City Hall. This is our expected scene. Picking up at City Hall as Amy Haney, the likely victim, is arriving. Right. So we're going to focus in then on Lionel and this peacekeeper and what is happening at this point in time. Let's find out. Okay. So, but first, before we can just pick up, we need to check the scene transition. So for the scene transition, we need to roll on the scene transition table. This is a D100 roll. That we roll that, and because we failed at our goal in the previous scene, this is at a plus 10. Right, so let's see what happens. Okay, we've got, oh goodness. Well, it is a 96, which plus 10. I mean, it was going to be a random event anyway, so it's 106. That puts it off, literally off the chart, right? So if you go off the chart, you just go with either the maximum or the minimum on the chart, which 106 would get fixed to 100. Random event. All right, so we need to generate a random event then. All right, well, I mean, that's probably good. It's probably good, right? Right. Okay, so random event. Roll on the campaign turn random event tables to find out what happens during your expected scene. This doesn't have to be related to the ongoing adventure. Use it for extra flavor or as future adventure hooks. Right, so I need to roll a focus, then an event roll. Okay. So, and this is okay, cool. So first thing first, we need to roll on the focus table. Okay, so our focus table right here 84. Now that's without any kind of modifier. The quest target. Okay, well, since the quest target was it's either Amy Haney being the victim, or it's Marisol Mays that is the perpetrator of this assassination. It's going to be one of the two of them. So I'm going to roll for a random event, and we'll see what seems to be most appropriate. Okay, right. So for campaign events, where's that table? It's in here somewhere. The campaign, okay. And this, I don't need best height. Don't best giver either. There it is. Okay. It was in here somewhere. All right. So, random event. So, we first roll a d10 to give us a category. It's category 10, which is vocation. So then we roll on the vocation table. This is a D100 table. All right, and it's a 40. So 40 here. Talent is not enough to overcome complication. Oh dear. All right. So what I'm thinking, right, I do want to make this related to what's going on here. Okay, so our elements. One is a random event. Two, it's in some way related to either Marisol Mays or, I don't know which of them it should be related to. So let's go ahead and roll that one just on my Oracle. Okay. So this is just unknown. So is this about Amy Haney, the victim? I got an 18. An 18 is no, it is not. So this must be about Marisol Mays. So something related to Marisol Mays suggests that talent is not enough to overcome a complication. Right. So I'm I'm guessing. So okay. So here's what I'm thinking is that Marisol Mays, right, is in disguise. And it makes sense that happened. Which means then, right, this is a complication to our plans because we knew what she looked like. We knew what she looked like. But she is in some kind of disguise. This might be something holographic, possibly, because it is technically a sci-fi setting. So it's possible, right? Uh, so I'm thinking it might be something like that. So some kind of this type of technology or something like this, right? So she is not going to be recognizable, right? And like the fact that we have some talents with investigation or whatever is not enough to overcome that. The fact is we just don't know, right, who the perpetrator is going to be. So I don't know that I'm going to do this as a totally separate event, right? Because I don't know that I want to do that. I really kind of want to get to what's actually happening here, right? So this is where kind of sometimes, as the soloist, you say, you know what, I'm just going to do the thing that I want to do, and that's why you do solo role playing. So then you can just do the thing you want to do, right? And that's what I want to do, right? So we are going to use this information. So technically, this is a quote unquote random event, right? But it's just a complication, right? So we are still at City Hall, right? Our goal is still now to prevent the assassination. So, some questions that we need to face, right? So, I really want to get to the point where the action is going to be happening, right? So, important questions. One, we need to figure out who is actually there. Specifically, we know that our group is going to be there. I'm going to assume the people that were stationed at City Hall actually made it. I didn't have any reason to believe they wouldn't, so we'll just say that that plan followed through. Now, the question is the people that are following behind, are they here by the time this scene happens? I don't know. Right, so this is something, and they did try to leave with enough time. They should be there before the assassination attempt is scheduled for, but it's possible they didn't make it. Right, so let's go ahead and roll this one. So I'm just going to say unknown. Okay, and that is a. Oh wait, I think that starts. Okay, 69. 69 is what we got. And that is a yes. Okay. So, everybody, all of our people are here on the scene. So the problem is that none of us, right, know what Marisol Mays is going to look like because she's in disguise. So what I'm going to suggest that means is that we're going to um, we're going to have to make some perception rolls to see whether we can notice her. Um, but I think these are going to be difficult rolls, which means then that I'm going to apply penalty to them because, we're just so good. We're just so good that I need to make the penalty. Okay. So again, I think it makes sense that Because none of our party have recon as a skill, literally none of them, not a single one, not a single blessed one of them has recon as a skill. Uh, so I think we're going to rely on the peacekeepers here to be our primary actors, right? So I think what we're going to do is we're going to roll like we did before. So this is again going to be at a minus, set like a -5, right? So this is probably going to turn out very badly, right? So just so we're prepared, we're all keeping an eye out. So Jeannie is watching. What does she see? 6 - 5 is a 1. That is really bad because that is an exceptional failure. We're failed by at least 6, right? So anything 2 and less, right, is going to be an exceptional failure. Um, yeah, that's terrible. That's really terrible. Because if you're aiding another and have an exceptional failure, it actually works against them, right? So that's a -2 penalty that's going to be carried as well as the other penalties, right? So genie is in fact the opposite of helpful, is actually anti-helpful. Right. So how about nope, okay. How about Lionel? Lionel also useless as far as this goes. His intelligence, yes, he's operating at a -3. Actually, not a -5 total, and he actually ended up with a negative number. Okay, so we're at -4. This is really, really bad. This is really, really bad. And then finally, Vince. Vince is only at a -4, right? He got a 6, so it's at least not an exceptional failure. And then my one peacekeeper is only operating at -2. We're assuming they have recon 0. Okay, not so another failure. So the peacekeeper that's finally the one that's actually trying to do the observing, the one that's the primary for this task, is operating at a -6 total because he is distracted by Genius over there looking all over the place, uh, and I don't know, singing or something, right? Um, Same thing with Lionel. Lionel is extremely distracted and distracting. So then we end up at a -6. There's no way this can possibly succeed. But the question is, how badly does it? The answer, miserably. Miserably fails. Okay. So our crew completely distracted. Right? Either just useless, right? Or literally making things worse. Okay. So I'm going to say that it makes sense here, right, that those who are exceptionally distracted, including the one that's kind of like trying to take point in finding who the assassin is, totally useless. Then shot rings out. So the question is, right, does this shot right, hit the target? So just to lay the scene, right? So well, our crew does not notice much of this, right? Uh, so we do have right. Here I'm imagining here that we are in kind of the main kind of lobby area. We're a little bit before, right, the lunch is supposed to happen. So Amy is there with her crew. They're just kind of waiting in the lobby, and there are other people coming and going, right? And our crew are kind of located on a balcony up above, or at least some of us are. Some of us are, I think, are on the ground as well. And we're trying to keep an eye on what all is happening. Is people again coming and going, coming and going. Yep. And I'd say we're still maybe like a half hour, right, from when the meeting is supposed to happen, right? So we're kind of looking around. We're not having much success at all. We're extremely distracted by our own thoughts, which I get that. I get it. And then shot rings out. So the question now is, did this shot find its target? Okay. So here's the problem. I don't have full stats for Marisol Maze, nor do I want to make them. So I'm going to just operate by saying that they're professional. Right? She's a professional at what she does. Right? Therefore, she probably has a +3. This makes sense. Can we do that? Sure. Now, I do have something that I have to decide here. Right? So reading the Cepheus Universal rules, right, they have specific rules for combat for NPCs. Right. So let me go ahead and I'm going to just pull these out real quick. Right. Rolling for the enemy unit. So the problem here is that everything that I see here uh, seems to be described on the basis of if we're dealing with area fire. Right. Right. So specifically, it says if the combat is being conducted with area fire and the PCs cannot see the enemy for much of the time, it seems silly to treat the enemy combatants as player characters with individual kit lists and skills. Instead, decide how many enemy are actually in the unit and make a single roll for that whole enemy unit. Okay, so that is the way this works. But I don't think that that makes sense here because we're not dealing with enemy fire. We're not dealing with we are dealing with enemy fire, but we're not dealing with area fire. That's what I'm talking about. So I think it makes sense here because we're dealing with a specific professional to treat this all as direct fire. So the way that direct fire works, right, is that it's simply it's just a skill roll in effect. So uh, so I'm going to roll to see whether this hits. Now, hits and kills are two different things. Right? So let's go ahead and roll it. First, for the hit. We're rolling at a +3 from aerosol maze. well, well. So there we have that. Okay, so 10 plus 3, that would be 13. Um, yeah, yeah, that hits. That definitely hits. All right. So damage. So let's see what the damage looks like here. Going back here a bit. So we're in direct fire. What's happening here, right? Um, yeah, I'm not going to worry about all these little details. I mean, it obviously hits, right? So I need to look up the equipment to know what type of damage roll I need to do. Okay, where's my equipment list? There it is. This is a weapon. Now, given what we know, it's probably, I'm guessing, some kind of laser, like pistol or something like that. So laser pistol would do 3d6 damage, so I need to grab another d6. Okay. I'm going to assume here that Amy Hania has just kind of average stats, so she's sevens across the board. And then we'll see what happens here. See, I'm trying to remember whether the effect adds into the damage is the one thing I'm not confident about here. Right, so because I want to say sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But I'm not sure either way. So let's see. Range of melee, but you obviously can't parry this. Okay. Is then successfully deals damage. This is creators offer frenzy fire. I don't need that. Indirect fire, no. Shotgun spread, no. Thrown attacks, no. Special damage. Some weapon come with a code. No, I don't really need that. Maybe that's just 29. What's that going to be? That's vehicles. I don't know what that was about. Okay. I mean, so I could just treat as a PC and then just roll as if say, oh, they're casualty. So enemy casualties are out of sight, either incapacitated or dead, as the GM decides. When an NPC soldier is hit in combat, rather than roll any weapon damage, roll a d6, ignoring armor. 1 to 3, injured and stunned for a round. 4 to 5, seriously wounded. 6, dead. Oh, that seems simple enough. Let's do that. I like that option. Right, so rather than rolling for damage, we're just going to roll because, I mean, this is not one of our PCs. 4, right? So 4 would be seriously wounded. Okay, so seriously wounded indicates a PC performing a difficult medical role with a trauma kit can stop a seriously wounded character dying within the hour, but the NPC is incapacitated and must be evacuated to a medbay, autodoc, or hospital as soon as possible. Right, so We hear the shot. We see Amy Haney drop. This is not great, right? So we need to try to figure out where this shot came from. Okay, now, at this point, I'm going to say the disguise isn't going to help much because we can at least hear. We might possibly then have some sense of where this came from. So I'm going to go ahead and say instead of a penalty, we're going to operate with a bonus here. So everybody's operating at a +2, which would make this, instead of average, this would make it a somewhat easy. I guess this would be considered routine. Okay. All right. So here we go. Let's see if we can identify. And also, I assume this person is going to be moving, right? Trying to get out of the like out of wherever they are fairly quickly. So Jeannie Alexander normally would be at a -4, but is only at a -2. Right? She is not helping. Okay, how about Lionel? 6 at a -1, which is also not helping. But also notice these are not exceptional failures this time. Vince is now at a normally be at a -2, at a -1. No, just a 0. Okay. Oh, 11. Awesome. So he's actually going to add 1 to the roll and make it the one peacekeeper 5. Well, okay, that's a fail. So we're getting to roll now at a +3 for this peacekeeper. Yes. Okay. So one peacekeeper. Oh, I record on my laptop, so if I move things and the screen moves, we get the camera bump. Right, so, all right, so this is what I'm imagining happening. Right, so we do see, and we see movement, right? So I'm trying to think of where this movement might be. Is it going to be up above or down below? That's a good question to put to the Oracle. So, Oracle, tell me, right, is the movement up in the balcony? 40. The answer then would be a no, it is not. Okay. So it must be down below. Right, so we do see, right, there's a person right down below that's starting to move and trying to escape. Okay, so I think our goal here, right, anybody that has a weapon on them is going to try to take a shot. I think that makes perfect sense for us to do that. Right, so I think, yeah, let's do that. So in that case, let's go ahead and use it's right here that they're out in the open, more or less, right? And that is going to benefit us. Unfortunately, we have people here who um don't have weapons on them. So here's the question, right? So I know Jeannie has a weapon, right? So she's probably going to be trying to. Okay, we also need to account for the possibility of melee here, right? So Lionel does not have a weapon. He doesn't even own one, right? So I think it makes sense. He might go and try to tackle, right, this person. I think that makes sense to me as something that would happen. Okay. All right. So Lionel, I think, is going to. Well, the question is Lionel on the ground? I don't know that. So I'm just going to do 50-50 here. Yes. So Lionel is on the ground. So Lionel is going to dash for this person, and I think that he can make it in this time. Because, I mean, although the person is also running away, but PCs act first within a round. So I think that I'm just going to say that he can make it. Right. So he can make it, and he can try to engage in a grapple. Is the grapple is going to be strength versus strength. Uh, so in that case, Lionel his strength is terrible. It's at a -1. Let's see. Oh, but he rolls a 9. Cool. Meanwhile, the opponent rolls terribly. This is good. This is very good. Right, so that means we have established a grapple. So he has a choice now. He can continue pinning the victim with no other effects, disarm the opponent if he succeeds by at least 4, which he did, he can take the weapon away, otherwise it ends up on the floor. I'm going to say that he did actually succeed right in this grapple, and that is the choice he's going to make. It is that he is going to disarm the opponent. So Marisol Mays starts dashing for it. Lino's like, "Oh no, this ain't happening," and is he also a medical person? Oh, that's exciting. Okay, I like this. So Lionel, despite being the medical person who might possibly want to see the person who was just shot, that's not his instinct. Instead, his instinct, well, he's cynical, downbeat, and despondent, but apparently this triggered something in him, right? So he dashes for the perpetrator, right? And grapples her, right? Right? And manages to knock the weapon out of her hand. Right? Now, he could take control of it, but I don't think he wants it. After all, not legal on this planet. So it goes skittering across the floor. Okay, so the next thing that's going to happen, we have then a number of other people nearby. So the question is, who is it that is also nearby that could possibly be involved in some way? Right? So, okay. Um, But Vince. So the question is Vince on the floor? The answer is yes. So I rolled over 50. That's what I'm going to do. This over 50 is a yes. Right. So Vince is also on the floor. So I think he might come and try to join in with this. Right. So and trying to tackle her or something like that. Right. So we've got her disarmed. So then Vince sees what's happening, and he's going to try to get her on the floor. Right. So that is the goal there. Uh, Vince also no particular skills that are relevant here. At least he's operating at a +0, I guess, um, and no combat skills. Right, so let's see. Hey, 9. Although technically it should be at a -3, shouldn't it? Yeah, yeah. So I think he goes, and he's just not. He's just not effective, right? So he's going to go and try to knock her down. He doesn't miss horribly. It's not that awful. But nonetheless, he does. He's not helping. He's not helping. Now, Genie, I'm imagining, is probably up top. I'm guessing is what happened there. Peacekeepers, I'm guessing one is down below, one is up above. So I think maybe the peacekeeper that's down below is also going to try to act. Now, this person, I'm just going to again give them a level of 0 of whatever. So they're not giving us their best troops, let's be honest. But at the same time, we're not going to be at a penalty either. Right. So they're also going to try to help and do actually succeed here. Okay, so this peacekeeper comes in and manages to knock Marisol Mays down, right, and uh, begin getting her in cuffs is the idea. Okay, so I think that was pretty good. Right. Now we also have a problem though, and that is that over here we have Amy Haney seriously wounded, bleeding out. We have an hour to take care of her, and we're in City Hall, so odds are we're going to be okay. But I think let's go ahead and give Lionel a chance to shine here as the medical guy, right? So let's go ahead and have him apply his medical skills. He has a +1 in this, right? So he's going to go over, right, to, um, oh, what's her name? Amy, right? So it's going to go over to Amy Haney laying on the ground, seriously hurt, and it's going to try, right, providing some kind of help. Now, here, I just want to double check this to make sure that I'm getting roll because if I remember right, I think it was at a -2, but I'm not 100% positive on that. So combat injury. All right, here we go. Yeah, it's a difficult medical role with a trauma kit. Does he have a trauma kit? Well, he does have a first aid kit. Uh, is that the same thing? That's a good question. Right. So he does carry a first aid kit with him. I don't know that that is as good as a trauma kit. That is the question here. So, um, medical first aid kit. Yeah, and there's nothing here indicating a difference between a first aid kit and a trauma kit specifically, right? So it's fairly basic stuff, but I think this is the purpose here is just to stabilize. But you still have to get her to a hospital soon. All right, so he's going to be operating then at a net -1. Right? So you +1 for the level, -2 for the difficulty. So at -1, so we're needs to roll a 9 or higher, stabilize. But we also have people nearby, right? So he does it. Excellent. Right, so Lionel does manage to stabilize Amy Haney. She's at least not getting worse quickly, which should allow enough time, right, for an ambulance to come to take her away. Right, so I think that we've come then to a pretty good conclusion, haven't we? Right, so I'm imagining now kind of bringing things up to an end. Right, so how does this end for our characters? Now, obviously, uh, some time passes, right? The peacekeepers thank our trio for their help uh, and take Marisol Mays, uh, you know, to whatever the system of justice is going to do with her. Right? And we also have, right, emergency medical people come, right, gather up Amy Haney, put her on a stretcher, right, take her out. She's heading to the hospital. Leaving then our trio having gathered together right, here in the lobby. Now, they might make some statements or something like that to the peacekeepers at some point, although they really don't have much to say at this point. They've already shared the information they have. The peacekeeper officers that were with them, right, can in effect provide the information that is needed. Right, so our trio has reached the end. And, you know, that they're certainly happy about the fact that, well, she didn't die. Things could have gone better, certainly. Right, but nonetheless, they did catch an assassin today. They did prevent someone from dying, if not from being shot, but you know, okay, take what you can get. And so I think they, after a very stressful week, they decided to go out, right, to, you know, whatever bar, whatever happens to be nearby, right, and enjoy some drinks and call an end to it. And that's that. So, because this, according to the Gemulator, when I rolled it up, it was a one shot. We're not going to be following these characters for another adventure. I will save their character sheets. I don't think that I got to know them very well. It's one of like okay, this is me now, Prof E, talking about reflection on this structure. So, a few things I want to reflect on. One is the system. I don't know that I played with the system as much as I should have. There's so much. There's so much here in this. I mean, it's like a 426 page book, right? And I barely scratched the surface of what some of these rules can do. I think that maybe if I were to do this again, right, I would want to systematically try to set things up so that I was checking how some of these rules worked, right? So we would do things like encounter pools of acid or something like that so we could figure out how acid damage works. We never actually took any damage, for example, as as characters. I don't think we ever took any damage. We were in danger a couple times, but it never actually happened, right? So we never experienced that. We never got to find out, see what the healing rules are like and how that would affect the game. We haven't actually experienced that, right? So I think that maybe I would do that a little bit differently. Now, I liked the Cepheus rules to start with, and I do like reading through. And the few things that I did try, right, that are specific to Cepheus Universal, I like. I think that one, I think I should have spent more time developing the characters as characters, right, before launching into the story, because at the end, I don't really feel like I knew them very well. And that's not from lack of tools, right? Instead, what happened? Well, if you go back and you watch like the first episodes where I'm making these characters, I'm just kind of like rolling through it as quickly as possible, more or less. Right? I'm not really taking time to say, well, for example, let's go back. So I have here, right? So when we rolled up Genie had we established a sibling. I have the sibling on my list of characters as Jeannie's sibling. I never gave them a name. I don't even know if it's a brother, sister, or like, non-binary sibling. I don't know. Jeannie also had a lover on my list, right, as Jeannie's lover. Right, never given a name, never given any detail about them except just like whatever the roles determined. That was it. I didn't flesh the characters out that much, and I think that was a mistake. So that's one. Um, and that's on me. The tools are here. but you have to use the tools you have. Right? Another thing that I wanted to think about was the gemulator, right? And kind of my reflection on that. And I think that I like the gemulator. So, and naturally, when you think about different solo systems, there are all kinds of options out there. Right? Now, of course, you have to talk about the big player, right, of Mythic, and I own Mythic. I have the second edition, right, of Mythic, and I have a probably less than legal copy of the original, right? But it was worthwhile. I decided to shell out the money for the second edition. And very good stuff. At the same time, a lot of what I try to do on this channel is look for things that are less expensive, right? So I forget how much Mythic is. It's like 40, 35, $40 or something like that if you want the actual physical copy. So it's not an inexpensive option. It's a good option, but it's not an expensive one. Whereas something like the Gemulator is pay what you want, right? So if you want to like hand who is it that does it? Moritz Renfeld. If you want to hand them a little bit of money, you can do that. Right? On the other hand, if you don't, right, it's perfectly fine. It's perfectly legal. You can download it uh, from DriveThru RPG without doing so. So I like this. I think the tables are good. I think that I didn't get to interact with them that much because this was designed as a one shot, just based on the random rolls that I did. I will say, uh, I have it linked in the description. Uh, when I made a kind of a how-to video with this, and interestingly, I noticed that there were some things that I said in that how-to video which it looks like the Gemulator was modified, not necessarily based on my videos, though I do know that the author apparently did see them because they shared on their website. Um, Unfortunately, that's not on this channel. So all those views are going to a different channel. In any case, uh, right. So like there were some just suggestions, no, not suggestions, but I guess observations I made. So things like a D5 table. And so, well, I don't have a D5, so I can roll a D6 and re-roll a six, that kind of thing. That isn't here anymore. In fact, every single table here is either D100 or D10, right, which I think is nice. And then and the way there is okay, there's one okay. I will show you this. See, I don't know if you can see it. So it says reputation right here. Okay, there it is. Reputation. It still says D5 there. When you look at the options, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right, so it's been converted to a D10 table where it was originally a D5 table. So it's just a typo there. Yep. Right. So there were some modifications made just to make it easier to use, which I think is fantastic. I love that. And I think that um, in terms of completeness, I think it's pretty good. I think it's pretty good. Now, it does have, of course, the limitation that any kind of general um, G emulator is going to have, right? And that is it's extremely general, right? And and you can watch. I did play a different round of Cepheus Universal using the Covetous Poets Guide, right? And that one is much more genre specific, right? So they have a number of different genres there. So you have like a set of tables that is specifically for sci-fi. Now, a lot of those options could overlap to other things. They're that specific to sci-fi, but nonetheless, I think that is something where you do have to do a little bit of mental work to say, oh, how does this apply in this context? Which you always have to do, but there's maybe a little bit more when you're going something more general, just trying to get more specific. Um, another thing, okay, this is just total nitpick on my part, and that is the way that the active lists work for the characters, right? Uh, I really like Mythic Second Edition made some modifications to this that I really, really like, right? So that is something where as a soloist, you can start combining things, right? So one thing that I like about that is one thing that Tana Pigeon did was took a concept from the Adventure Creator, I believe it was. Yes. Adventure Crafter. That's what it is. Adventure Crafter was the name of the product, which she'd previously written. And that was that if a character shows up and is significant, you add them to the character list multiple times, so then they end up becoming more likely to be rolled. One thing though, this is kind of an odd list, the way that it's structured in the Gemulator, in that you can list up to 15 items. But that's hard to roll on, right? So making it 20 or something like that, and then you can always, swap out for different, um, uh, for a different die if necessary. And there's a structure there in the way that I think Twee does it. I think you can actually see this structure on like the free sheets you can download right from, oh, what is it? Wordmill? Is it Wordmill Press? Something like that is who does Mythic. Um, So you can download these and you can see the way that it has it structured, which I think is kind of nice, is that it's a combination of dice that you're using. Right, so you roll one die, which I think is generally somewhere between, I'm gonna say it can go from a D4 up to maybe a D10, possibly. Possibly, I don't recall for sure on that one. Right, and then you also roll a D10, and that narrows down right, who it is that you've rolled. Which I kind of like that, in that there's a very clear way to attach a roll of dice to the people, right? And I like the idea of having characters appear multiple times. Now, this is something obviously I could just implement with this. It wouldn't be that hard. Or I could very easily say, okay, I find the 15 thing awkward, right? So I'm just going to pull out a sheet of paper and have a list of 20. These are easy fixes, right? So that's just, like I said, very, very nitpicky on my part. Things that I do really like about the Gemulator, and while I'm talking about it, let's go ahead and compare it with Mythic. One thing that I dislike about Mythic, right, is the Chaos Factor. I don't like the Chaos Factor because it acts for me opposite the way that I feel like story beats should act. See, I feel like story beats should be kind of roller coaster-ish, right? So things get exciting and then get less exciting and then get exciting and then get less exciting. Like that's the pattern. Which suggests then that what should happen is your chaos factor should have a tendency to go up and then down, up and then down, up and then down. But that's not what's built into the system. Instead, what's built into the system is if you are in control in a scene, right, then the chaos factor falls, which means then things become more and more stable. Right, so it's this feedback loop that reinforces itself, or goes the other direction. Right, so if things get out of control, then they become more and more chaotic. Is the way that the structure is. I don't particularly care for that. Now, what I do like about this is that while it may be, in my mind, kind of pushing the wrong direction, nonetheless, right, uh, it has a limit to it, right? So what happens in the previous scene has an effect on this scene, and that's it, right? The limitation of the limitation on memory, I think, is something that I really like about the Gemulator, and the way that it tries to take into account letting one scene affect the next scene mechanically, while at the same time without it becoming something that is overwhelming. I guess might be the way to put that. Okay. Right, so I think it is good. I think it's a nice little tool. I particularly enjoy one thing that's in here, even though it's not something that became relevant for us in this particular campaign. But I really like that campaign setup stuff. I think that's cool. I enjoy that the possibility of having these multiple adventures all connected. I think that's really neat. Right, so there's a lot about this that I really do enjoy. Okay. Right, so just wanted to mention that. So what is coming up next? Right, so I'm still in the midst of a Shadow Dark campaign that's going on. Because I always kind of I like having the combination of fantasy and science fiction. I kind of like a foot in both places, like in both camps. So like right now, say think about the TV that I watch. I watch we're doing Star Trek Lower Decks. My wife and I are watching that one, and also Wheel of Time. Right? So, and I think a lot of people do this. A lot of people that like one form of speculative fiction also like another form of speculative fiction. And I will alternate, say, between reading a science fiction novel, like right now I'm in the middle of The Chaplain's War, which definitely science fiction, and then reading a fantasy novel. I'm in the middle of the Wheel of Time series with that. Right? Or I'm also reading. I rotate, right? Reading some of the Terry Pratchett Discworld stuff, right? So these are the types of things that we do, and so I like that alternation, right? So what I what I think I would like to do next, I really like Cepheus's system, and as I mentioned, I like Cepheus Universal. I like the version that is here, but I want to try mixing something up. Right? So I could just start a new campaign, right? Use the same tools as before. I'm not going to do that. Instead, what I found a couple tools. So one thing that I've used in the past, right, though I don't think I've used on this channel, is something called traveling alone. Right, so this one, it came out many years ago in one of the Traveler fanzines, and it's really just a cycle, a play cycle for playing Traveler, or like this was published in Cepheus Journal. Forget which issue. I want to say it was issue 8 or something like that. Um, it's very short. It's like a little 8 page, even only 7 pages. Like, so it's a very, very short supplement uh, to use for solo play. So I may want to use this at some point. I've used it in the past, like I said, not on the channel. So because I like trying new stuff on the channel and then I can provide thoughts like this, I think that what I want to do. So other people have mentioned Hostile Solo and then just plain old Solo from Zoser Games. The Hostile Solo apparently came a little bit later and has some improvements to the old Solo system, but these are both things they're going to cost me money, and I don't want to spend that right now. Right, so there's something else from Paul Elliott of Zoser Games right here that is playing solo Classic Traveler, and from what I can tell, right, it has a pattern not unlike what you might find in solo or in hostile solo, but it's specifically designed for if you're playing classic travel. Actually, it looks like Paul Elliott wrote this after writing solo, but apparently before hostile solo, from what I can tell. I don't see the exact date on here, so you could narrow this down better than I could. In any case, right, so that is what I think I'm going to be doing next with Cepheus. And I also think in terms of structure, uh, I'm going to make new characters. Like I said, I will keep these ones because they might be side characters that show up at some point in time. But I think that I'm going to make some new characters, um, and I'm going to try to develop them a little bit more before we start breaking out into adventures and the like. So I want to play with this, kind of see what kind of structure this provides. Now, one issue with this is that it does not provide any kind of oracles or anything like that. So I'm going to need something else to fill in those gaps. I think I'm not decided. I'm not decided what I want to do about that yet. Because I like using stuff that's free, right? Um, on the other hand, I like trying new stuff too. So I don't know yet. I don't know yet. Maybe I'm going to take some more time to think about that one. But at the very least, I think in terms of the general campaign structure, I'm going to be following playing solo Classic Traveler, available on a pay what you want basis from Zoser Games on Drive Through RPG. And I say that like it's advertisement, but I don't get anything. I don't even use affiliate links, right? So at least at this point, who knows? Maybe by the time you're watching this, I'll have replaced all my links with affiliate links. Maybe, um, for that one click. In any case, um, this has gone on definitely long enough. This is Prof E signing off.